Hello, welcome to the Joinery Business Podcast today. I'm your host, Bruce Poling, and if you're joining us for the very first time and you're listening to this in the podcast, I would just like to mention that we also do this podcast as a live video broadcast on YouTube. So there are some visuals that I'm going to be doing here today in the video, and if you'd like to take advantage of the audio and the video, jump into YouTube and have a look as well. But as I go through this podcast, I will also make sure that I'm talking about it as well as I can, so you get as much out of the audio podcast as you would the video. So thanks for joining us today. We've got a really interesting podcast to talk about today. We're going to be talking about mistakes and errors that you find in your business. It's one of those topics that is an ongoing, ever-present, continuous conversation that I have for years and years and years. If you're just joining for the first time and you don't know too much about me, again, my name is Bruce. I run a business called The Joinery Coach, and we've been helping joinery businesses, businesses probably like yours that make kitchen cabinets, furniture, shop fitting, commercial millwork, commercial joinery, anything like that. We've been helping your businesses grow for close to 20 years. And it's a really, really interesting thing to do, to come onto a podcast like this and be able to go through topics that are very short and sharp and specific. And my main goal at the beginning of this year is to give away as much short, sharp, very specific bits of information that you can consume, absorb, and go to your business either right now or the next day and actually apply in your business and be quite useful for you. One of my favorite sayings is, I love to be interesting, and I love people listening to what we do, so I love being interesting, but I'd much rather be useful. So my aim in these podcasts and these presentations is to give away some very useful information. Obviously, we've got a fairly limited amount of time here, so we can only go so far and only go and give so much. And then the obvious question is, if you'd like to go farther, please feel free to connect with us. The next step really is not selling anything. This is a free step. Join us in our Facebook group called the Joinery Business Hub. That is the Joinery Business Hub on Facebook. And it's just a really fun, active way that we can connect, and you can ask questions, and you can actually see some of the other stuff that's going on that may not be a podcast, but you can also connect with other business owners just like you. So the Joinery Business Podcast is our next step, where if you'd like to take things further and see more things like this, rather than a weekly podcast, there's things that are going on in the hub every single day. If you would like to reach out and connect with us directly and learn about how we might be able to help you with your business, just go to thejoinerycoach.com, the website. You'll see the connect with us there, book a chat. We're available anytime, so I never need to answer an email about, hey Bruce, when are you available? My booking availability is public. Just book a call anytime you want and we can have a chat. So that's how you can sort of take things to the next level. Today, we're going to be talking about mistakes and errors. Mistakes and errors, sometimes called screw-ups or whatever you want to call them. They're costly, right? They're things that cost your business a lot of money. A business, a kitchen goes in and the cabinet's the wrong size, or the doors are supposed to be drawers, or there's a scratch, or there's a piece of edge tape that's coming off, or the door is hinged on the wrong side, or the handles are in the wrong place. Or what else? The door that was supposed to have glass in it doesn't have glass in it, or it has the wrong sort of glass in it. What else is really, really common? The bench top has a scratch in it. There's all kinds, you can probably sit down and list 100, maybe 200 typical mistakes or errors that you encounter on a daily basis. And look, I ran my own joinery business for a lot of years, and there is a fairly exhaustive list of mistakes and errors that you have to deal with on a day-by-day basis. That's just the way this sort of business runs. So we know that your business is run on human contact. Like you have humans working for you doing tasks to produce the product. Now, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but humans are not perfect and humans make mistakes. And that's just the short and the sweet of it, right? Is that you have humans working for you and humans make mistakes. So to think that anybody working for you is not going to make a mistake is really just fooling yourself as a business owner. It would be ideal, absolutely. You might have some people that claim they never make mistakes, and I call BS to that. I've seen a million cabinet shops, and what I know is people that are saying they don't make mistakes are people that know how to cover up and cover their mistakes really, really well. Or they're people who know how to fix the mistakes really well so nobody ever finds them. And this is the funny thing about cabinet makers. I'm a cabinet maker myself. And what we are is people that really know how to solve problems. So if you have something go to an assembly bench that happens to have a mistake or an error or a mistake or something not right on it, usually the person on the assembly bench takes that as the sign to simply do whatever they need to do to fix it. Cabinet makers are fix-it people. We're people that do a really good job of fixing mistakes. So quite often you might not even know the mistakes or errors that are going through your factory because you're not looking for them specifically in the right place. And so we've got to put some intent around this as a system to really discover where the mistakes and errors are. Now, I've worked in and around literally thousands of kitchen cabinet and joinery manufacturing businesses, and most of them are the same in this area where there's not a lot of really good systems around it. But the other thing that I find that is very, very consistent with most is there's a lot of blame going on. If somebody makes a mistake, oftentimes the first thing that happens is they go, well, why did you make that mistake? Don't make that mistake again. You hear either supervisors, managers, or business owners saying to people all the time, I've told him and told him and told him to stop making that mistake, and he keeps doing it. So we've got this continual dialogue back and forth that clearly if the mistake is continuing to be made, that ain't working for you. You can't, the definition of insanity is, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. So if, your people are continuing to make mistakes and you keep telling them not to and they keep doing it, something has to give, right? Something has to change. We've got to do something a little bit differently here. So before I dig into the three things, there's going to be three very, very, very specific things that I'm going to help you with to think about problem solving and mistake proofing and what we can actually do to help in the first instance when you do find a mistake or an error or one of your staff make a mistake. What do we need to do immediately to figure out what to do? I'll give you a little bit of background on this. I come from a trade background, a cabinet maker by trade. In about 2002, we sold our business and I got into coaching and consulting. I won't give you the long story. If you really want to read it, it's on the website, it's on LinkedIn, it's all over the internet. You can read it if you're really interested. But the bottom line is my journey to the place where we're at right now, there's been a lot of extra learning and a lot of extra education that I've had to take to become a qualified business coach. And part of the learning that I've taken along the way is learning about lean manufacturing. And any manufacturing, doesn't matter what you're manufacturing, any manufacturing of any kind of product is going to find mistakes and errors in its process at some stage. And lean manufacturing really was perfected at Toyota, but it's really a bunch of common sense responses to things when they happen. And it has to be put in such a way that it's appropriate to the audience or the place that it's being implemented in. So here in Australia or in Canada or the United States or places that are not Toyota in Japan, we have slightly different approaches to things. But I think that this one in particular still works across any culture because blaming people for making a mistake just simply doesn't work in anywhere in the world. Nobody, no human anywhere in the world is going to respond well to being blamed for making a mistake. And I've witnessed it over and over and over again that when we can remove blame from people, what happens is they're more engaged, they're more willing to admit that they've made a mistake, which in turn is going to lead to a whole lot more discovery of how to solve those problems rather than that person feeling like they have to cover it up or feeling bad about the potential that they are going to make a mistake, which takes their eye off the ball and actually in turn results in them making more mistakes. So if people are actually worried about making mistakes because they're being blamed, the statistics tell us that they will actually make more mistakes. If people are not worried about making mistakes, they won't make more mistakes. They will be more engaged in doing better work because they're focused on the work itself, knowing full well that when they do make a mistake, it's going to be a topic of discussion around how are we going to solve this and stop it from happening again. So I've seen both sides of the coin for sure. I've seen really, really bad blame cultures where there's all kinds of mistakes and errors happening in the factory and in the office, and everybody's just getting blamed for it. Owners just being upset. I've been one of these owners myself years and years and years ago. The guy that was working for me that was cutting on the panel saw back, this was pre-CNC days, where he would make a cut list and he would cut things wrong, and then I would get upset and say, well, slow down, stop making mistakes, get the cut list right, and that mistake would happen again in another day or two or a week or two. And it took me a little while to work out that I can get upset about this all I want, and I can tell him to stop making the mistake all I want, but that didn't contribute to solving the problem in any way, shape, or form. It just created a negative environment. What I ended up doing was saying, okay, to solve this problem, having someone figure out how to make a cut list in their head is always going to create mistakes. So if we actually draw this in a computer program and we get it right and we work on the computer program almost never makes a mistake on a cutting list. That was back in 97, 98, quite a few years ago when we were using a program called Cabinetware. So we transitioned out of relying on humans to come up with cut lists, and we transitioned into computer programs creating cut lists and us just giving the human the cut list to cut, and errors greatly reduced, obviously, because the human is then just asked to cut based on the cut list. That's not to say no errors were made, but greatly reduced for sure, because a simple mathematical error in a human brain is going to happen, but it's generally not going to happen in a computer program. I get it. Some of you are saying computer programs screw up too, and of course they do, but that's not because they got it wrong. That's because they were programmed wrong. So anyway, reducing mistakes and errors, computer programs have contributed greatly through automation and CNC. So that was just an example of a light bulb moment for me many years ago that told me that I actually had to do something different within the process that the person that worked for me was following. So there's actually 3 reasons why a mistake will be made. Now, the first reason, obviously, is you have an employee, whether it's a person in your factory, whether it's a person in your office, or your salesperson, you have employees that follow the process that your business has told them to follow. So there's really only 3 specific reasons why a mistake or error will happen. And it makes it really simple if you keep it contextualized into these potential areas. So I'm going to go through the 3 error reasons here, and what I'd like you to do is to go to your business either today or tomorrow or whenever it is. No doubt you're probably going to find a mistake or an error that's happened, and I'd like you to look over these 3 choices and send me a message. Either it's in the Facebook group or send it to me on Facebook Messenger or whatever you want, and just tell me you found a mistake or an error that happened, and it was because of either choice 1, 2, or 3. So I'll go through these choices right now. If a mistake or error happens in your business, the first reason that a mistake could be happening is because you have a bad process. Now think about the person following this process. Is there a generally accepted way of doing things that you have generally said to everybody, this is what you need to do, but you haven't really refined whether the process that they're doing is good or bad? It might have some errors in the process itself. So mistakes can happen because of bad process. The second reason you can have a mistake or an error that happens in your business is because you have no process. So if you have no process to follow, they're going to do things differently every single time, which is going to create variation and mistakes or errors in the outcome. If you have good process that's known to have a good outcome, then your mistakes and errors after that will go down. So the first reason is you have a bad process. The second reason is you might not have any process at all. And if there's any guesses as to what the third one is, the third one is probably going to be you have a good process, but it wasn't followed. So it is possible that you have a good process and your employees don't follow it. But I would strongly encourage, if you're a business owner and you have just jumped to number 3 right now and you have just told yourself that you have good processes and it's just because your people aren't following them, you are probably in the category of blaming your employees. So what I would encourage you to do is forget about option number 3 for now. Just assume that the choices that are the reasons why you have mistakes or errors happening in your business are either going to be because you have a bad process or because you have no process. Now, the reason that I suggest you focus on those two is because if you could imagine a company like McDonald's stopping at a certain point of refining their processes and saying, we're good enough, let's just leave it at that. They would never, ever have gotten to the stage they're at right now. They have constantly and permanently always refined and improved their processes. They almost never think they have a perfect process. Now, I know there's going to be some of you talking about how McDonald's is crap food and all that sort of stuff, which it probably is. But the point is, they are geniuses at creating good process. They've made it so that, many, many, many years ago when McDonald's started, you would always have a chef or a highly trained individual doing what a low-skilled worker is doing now. So they kind of created the let's take high skill and turn it into something that somebody could do easily. They did that pretty well for us, and if they didn't do that, they would never have the business they have now. So let's just consider that if you have a mistake or error that happens in your business, it's because either number 1, you have a bad process, or number 2, you have no process. Now, when you come up with those 2 answers, or one of those 2 answers, you're automatically going to have to say, well, if we have a bad process, let's have a look at the process. And let's talk about refining and improving your process. Now, here's the kicker with having a bad process is when you actually improve the process, you will improve your people. So that's the place to start, is to always look at improving your process. Now, if you don't have a defined process that is documented and you've trained your people on how to do it, and it's well known and it is known to have a good outcome, then essentially you have no process. You're just letting your people do whatever you think or what they think is the right thing to do. And that is not a way to create a successful business. A successful business has known processes that have a known outcome so that the people that are performing those tasks can get that known outcome every single time without ever having to guess at it. So mistakes or errors happening in your business can be narrowed down to having 3 reasons, but let's throw out the good process not followed for now. When you do get to a point in your business, and we've got a couple of clients that we've been working with for 2 or 3 years, we've constantly evaluated their process, improved their process, let it run for a little while, and then reevaluate it again. They're getting pretty close to a little bit of a McDonald's situation where they're going, you know what, we've got a pretty good process now, and if an employee doesn't follow it, all of a sudden, if they can look themselves in the mirror and say, we actually have a really good process here because 9 out of 10 people following this process are getting exceptional results every single time. The process is known to get perfect result. But you have somebody that just isn't following that process. Now what we've got is a training problem, or we've got a supervision problem. Why is that person being allowed to not follow what is accepted as a good process in this business? Employees and management work in that dynamic where employees that need to follow a process generally have some supervisor, someone guiding them, or a team leader watching over them. And if they continue to get bad results within a good process, then or they continue to be allowed to not follow the company's process, then we've got to look at the managers or the supervisors and say, why are you not insisting, or why are you allowing that person to not follow the company's accepted process. Because if that happens with one person, if one person is allowed to not follow the process that the company has adopted as the company's process, then the next person's going to do it. And pretty soon you've got a deterioration in the business of your entire processes right throughout the entire company, just because one person was allowed to do it their way, right? And sometimes employees will do that if you let them do it. So even if you have a good process and your employee hasn't followed it, blaming them even in that situation doesn't solve the problem, because it's normally a supervision or a management issue. You know, allowing the person to not follow the process that we worked really hard to refine. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of food for thought around, if a mistake or error happens in your business, rather than just blaming the person, telling them that they need to stop making that mistake and hoping that that's going to work when for years prior it hasn't. Think about if you've discovered a mistake, first of all, consider that the process they're following is probably bad. Or if they have no defined process, no specific process, the first place you probably should start is to create a process that they should follow. Even better yet, get them to create the process that they think they should follow and then refine that. This is part of lean manufacturing and just the basic fundamentals of problem solving and mistake proofing, but I think it's a really, really good little bit of information to follow, and very, very useful in your business. You've got 3 things to think about: mistakes happened, bad process, no process, or good process not followed. Which one is it? And then respond appropriately with the appropriate, response to solving the problem. But blame doesn't solve a problem. It just makes everybody feel bad, and has been proven to have a result of more mistakes and errors in your business. And I'm pretty sure that's not what you want. So hopefully this has been of some use to you. It's a nice little quick and easy podcast, something for you to take away and use in your business. If you like this, either like us, send us a message. If you want to learn more, jump into our group. It's a free group. We're not selling anything there. It's just a way for us to connect and maybe give a little bit more value. And if you'd like to learn more about what we do, by all means, jump onto our website and connect with us in the Contact Us page. Really, really easy. Just find a time there to join, and we'll have a chat. Thanks for joining us. This has been great. I look forward to talking to you in the hub. Have a great day, and we'll chat to you soon. Peace out.